Ice Princess is generally a good film. This was released in 2005. It's a Disney film directed by Tim Fywell, written by Hadley Davis, and we have a cast including Michelle Trachtenberg as Casey. We also have Joan Cusack, Kim Cattrall, Hayden Panettiere, and various others. Really great performances. Michelle Trachtenberg plays Casey, who is a teenager who's great at science, great at physics. She's got a chance to get a Harvard scholarship, and she's working on a project that studies the physics of ice skating and how she can apply physics to ice skating. And initially she's just observing the ice skaters, but she gets a chance to go on the rink, and it re-sparks her love of ice skating. And the film is largely about whether she'll follow her head or her heart. Will she go to Harvard? Will she get the scholarship? Will she realise she's destined to be an ice skater? I'm not going to say, of course, but I think there are generally some really good messages in this. Sometimes I think it's maybe leaning a little bit too irresponsibly towards following your heart over your head. I think they could have done a bit more with balance. I feel like Casey, there should have been conversations with Casey where people said to her, instead of putting all of your eggs in one basket, why don't you try and find a way to do both? And for the bulk of the film, that never seemed like something she was working towards. And I feel like they could have done that so much more. They could have done so much more with that and encouraged her to follow her head and her heart. There's no reason why she couldn't have tried to do both. But instead, it felt like she was either being pulled towards Harvard or pulled towards ice skating. But in the real world, in most cases, you can have a hobby and an education. And that's not to say her ice skating wouldn't become more than a hobby, but it's not as if she was going to go from day one on the ice, day two world famous, touring the country with ice skating shows. So I feel like it was maybe a little bit irresponsible by even suggesting for the bulk of the film that she had to choose. Whereas in the real world, you don't necessarily have to choose. You can find a balance. You can do a sensible thing and get an education so that if the dream of ice skating doesn't pan out, you have something on which to fall back. Whereas the film kind of made it seem like she had to choose between her heart and her head. And of course, that's what the film is about. Which will she choose? And I'm not going to say, but I don't think the message was as good as it could have been or as responsible as it could have been. But at the end of the day, anything that encourages following your dreams is obviously going to be a magical experience. And the ice skating is just so, so gorgeous. Ice skating is one of those things I'd love to be able to do. I've never really tried it properly. I've been on the ice. I've ice skated casually when I was a teenager, every odd weekend, just going down to the ice rink and skating around and trying to remain upright. But I can't imagine I'd be very good at it. I don't have a lot of coordination. But it's one of those things where if I could just click my fingers and be amazing at something, I feel like that would be such a wonderful thing to be good at. So I really thoroughly enjoyed watching the performances on the ice. They're absolutely stunning. The costumes are gorgeous and the characters are good, very well written, absolutely no problems there. The performances are great. And yes, I do think a film that addresses the concept of whether you should follow your heart or your head is a good thing because, let's face it, most of us come up against that at some point in our life. But I don't think it did it as responsibly as possible, bearing in mind the film is aimed at teenagers who are going to be at that crossroads where they have to decide, do they want to do something that will set them up for the rest of their lives, or do they want to take a risk? Or indeed, as is often the case in the real world, can you do a bit of both? Obviously, you can't do a bit of Harvard and a bit of ice skating, but it's not that she couldn't go to Harvard and continue pursuing ice skating as a passion. So I feel like it could have been a little bit more responsible with presenting her options to her in a more believable, realistic, and I guess safe way. I know safe is not the most magical story, but I think it would have been more responsible for the target audience. But nevertheless, I think the film was still generally a well-executed narrative. Visually, it's really great. The performances are wonderful. The emotions feel very believable. The characters are well written. I don't really have any real complaints about this. I'm surprised I'd never seen it before. I would have been 12 or 13. I would have been just 13. It came out about 3 weeks after I turned 13. So I would have been really the target audience for this, but I'd never seen it. I don't know why. Especially as being a big Disney fan, I'm not entirely sure why this bypassed me. But watching it now for the first time as an adult, I rather enjoyed it, and ultimately, I'm happy to recommend Ice Princess.